Okay, we have a lot of news to get into today. Lots of headlines, economic data, earnings, all of that. But Tom Lee says that stocks are going to make new all-time highs over the next couple of weeks. Take a listen to this clip from CNBC. It's only about 4 minutes long, but I think you really should at least consider what he has to say, especially about these new all-time highs coming over the next couple of weeks, but also 2026. That is shaping up to look like a pretty good year for equities.
Coming back to you here now on the value front, how do the U.S. budget deficit and the bond market factor into your medium-term strategy, given what we see going on in Congress?
I would say short term, it's very hard to predict when these budget deficits are going to show up in a big way. But in the long run, what can't go on forever ends. And these kinds of deficits that we're running right now can't go on forever. Very hard to predict when it's going to end, but we are in unprecedented levels of debt right now. We are unprecedented levels of deficits. This is going to be inflationary. Deficits are by definition inflationary when the Fed starts to fund them by borrowing more or by printing press. It's going to be inflationary, and then tariffs are fundamentally inflationary. So again, very hard to call when, but long term, this is the real threat.
Tom, security stocks have been on a nice run in general, but as we see Okta sort of pulling in the full year revenue guidance here, even though the results themselves look pretty strong, Tom, that in also the context of Salesforce doing this attempted buy of Informatica, is this environment more bullish or is it not with the macro uncertainty?
Well, I mean, companies should understandably be cautious because, the tariff drama is still in play. I think investors are ultimately going to give pass to companies that don't give guidance. I mean, I don't think Okta's sort of pulling guidance means actually there's a downturn coming. It's just, I don't know how anyone could actually say what they expect for the next 2 quarters. But that being said, I do think 2026 is shaping up to be pretty good. So I not only do I think it's a good M&A environment next year, but we'll have deregulation, we'll have some visibility on taxes. I think the tariff drama is behind us, and the Fed, who's been on hold, is probably going to be dovish next year. I mean, to me, all of that means PE should be going up, and I think the $7 trillion of cash on the sidelines starts to get deployed.
Okay. Charlie, we've still got rates higher for at least for now, probably for longer than a lot of people would like. And we've got a consumer that's overall getting pinched on the credit side. We'll see how overextended. Now, I know you like value, but value gets affected by those things. No? How should investors navigate that?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts there. One, it is true that higher interest rates actually have less effect on value than on growth because value stocks have a shorter duration. Their cash flows are coming sooner than growth companies whose cash flows are in the far distant. So higher interest rates, all else equal, have less effect on value stocks than on growth stocks, the low PE versus high PE. But you're absolutely right. One of the real bear cases on value is the consumer. Today's news was very positive for the consumer confidence, but all of us who are talking to companies are still worried about the consumer. And I will admit that is more of a headwind for value stocks than for growth.
Tom, Bitcoin at around 110,000 right now, at very high levels, and you think that that's bullish for growth and risk overall?
Yeah. I mean, Bitcoin for the past 10 years has been not only a leading indicator, but I think a risk-on indicator because it does respond to liquidity. So Bitcoin made an all-time high last week. Bitcoin peaked a month before the S&P did. So I do think this is telling us the S&P should be making all-time highs pretty soon. But it doesn't mean I think Bitcoin's capped as well. I mean, I think we have to keep in mind that institutional adoption for Bitcoin's growing. I think that consumer awareness for Bitcoin actually is still pretty nascent. And so when we still have a visible demand coming and a fixed supply, I think it's a lot of upside for Bitcoin.
Now, before we go ahead and get into all of your headlines of the day today, it was a pretty big day as far as economic data as well. GDP growth rate quarter over quarter, second estimate for Q1. Keep in mind, the first estimate was negative 0.3%. The second estimate, which came out today, was negative 0.2%. So not as bad as the first estimate, but still negative. You have corporate profits quarter over quarter coming in at negative 3.6%. Expectations were positive 5.9%. That's not exactly great. GDP price index came in at 3.7%, in line with expectations. Initial jobless claims did spike today to 240,000. They were expected at 230,000, and last week was 228,000. So that's maybe a little alarming to some people, but I think we'll have to just give it some time and see what happens there. Pending home sales month over month, negative 6.3%, way worse than the estimated negative 0.9%. Pending home sales year over year came in at negative 2.5%. Estimate was negative 1.9%. So that was worse than expected as well. We also did get, let's see. Nope, we get that spending data coming out tomorrow. So tomorrow you're actually going to see quite a big data day as well, with core PCE month over month expected at 0.1%. And personal income month over month expected at 0.3%, and personal spending month over month expected at 0.2%. I think that personal spending number is going to be huge because people's spending money is like 70+% of this economy. You have to see people continue to spend, or recession fears come about, labor market weakening fears come about. So I think tomorrow's data is actually very critical. Now, Canada's Prime Minister Carney says Canada is still being hit by unjustified U.S. tariffs on steel and autos, commenting on the judge's ruling last night of pausing the tariffs. And Canada's Prime Minister says that he welcomes a U.S. court ruling on tariffs. Iran says the U.S. desire to destroy Iran's nuclear sites is a fantasy. I don't think they're really talking about destroying the sites, just destroying the country, right? All of it. So Iran should be careful here. India's Trade Minister Goyal says India is well on track in trade discussions with the U.S. Japan's Prime Minister Ashiba says there is no change in the stance of creating a win-win relationship with the U.S. He also says that he discussed diplomacy, security, and the economy with Trump. And he says that he could visit the U.S. before the G7 summit if required. Japan's prime minister says the Japan side initiated the call with Trump this time, and that he thinks Trump and himself deepened their understanding. He says they had a 25-minute long phone conversation. And Japan's prime minister says we aim to create jobs through investments. Sachs CEO Waldron says there is less fiscal headroom in the world right now than in COVID. And he says that he expects the tariff court case to be heard by the Supreme Court. So basically, he's not expecting any dramatic change or clarity coming anytime soon. He also says that the U.S. economy and consumer is showing tremendous resilience. Trump's trade advisor Navarro says the Trump administration is not surprised by the trade court ruling. They were actually prepared for that. He says that the Trump administration has a number of different options on trade. And he says that deals are still going to happen. And Navarro said this on the trade court ruling, that nothing has really changed. And he says that there is no question there is an economic emergency. The White House senior advisor Hassett says there's basically 3 trade deals already done. And he expects more trade deals in the coming weeks. And he says that he is confident in the success of the tariff ruling appeals. And he believes the judge's decision on tariffs will be overturned. According to Redfin, there are 34% more sellers in the market than buyers. India's trade ministry official says that India and U.S. trade talks are progressing well and expects a good outcome soon. And China's vice premier says that China urges the U.S. to stop its wrongdoings on tariffs. China's foreign ministry on U.S. plans to revoke Chinese student visas says, quote, "We hope the U.S. can move in the same direction as China and do more constructive things." And China is urging the U.S. to stop discriminatory measures. And he says that China complained multiple times on U.S. chip export controls. Now, here on the day today, the percent of stocks trading above their 50-day moving average is moving higher, up about 3% today to 66.22%. CNN's Fear and Greed Index today coming in at 66, about in the midpoint of greed, so largely unchanged over the past couple of days. Market momentum, extreme fear. Stock price strength is greed. Stock price breadth, extreme greed. Put and call options, greed. Market volatility is neutral. Safe haven demand in extreme greed, and junk bond demand in extreme greed. And look at that. Our favorite contrarian indicator is back. Bullish investors coming in at 32.9%, neutral investors at 25.2%, and bearish investors at 41.9%. Bearish investors climbed about 5, almost 6% within the last week. Bullish investors fell about the same, and neutral investors fell about 0.5%. So, yeah, people are still very bearish out there. And as long as there's bears, there's room for markets to move higher. Now, today and after hours, you will have earnings from Marvell, Costco, Dell, Elastic, Zscaler, Ulta Beauty, Gap, American Eagle, Ambarella, and NetApp. So a lot of software. Some retailers like Ulta, Gap, American Eagle, even Costco will be important. AI names, Elastic, Dell, Marvell, Zscaler, more of that software, cybersecurity, but still has AI elements. So you are going to have some earnings still today and after hours that could be important. So let me know your thoughts on all of this down below in the comment section. Ladies and gentlemen, I do think the developments in the last 12 hours or so with NVIDIA earnings, with the ruling from the courts, is, again, still a positive element for markets. I still think it continues to support stocks moving higher. So let me know your thoughts on that down below in the comment section. Are you bullish? Are you bearish? Are you buying puts? Are you buying calls? Are you adding to your long-term positions? Let me know what you are doing down below in the comment section. Have a fantastic rest of your day nonetheless, and I will see you in the next one.